This episode is brought to you by Hub24, whose purpose is to connect advisors to innovative solutions that create opportunity. They're massive supporters of advisors, in particular those going solo, and they're one of the early players in the managed account space, and their epic functionality in that area, as well as their commitment to user experience, has led them to become a market leader in terms of advisor satisfaction. I can speak from personal experience when I say their BDM team are total legends, and they're there to help you work through the best solutions for your business. So you can check out more information at hub24.com.au. This episode is also brought to you by Centuria, who are a boutique, ultra high-performing fund manager. They've won pretty much all the awards there are to win. They've got a bunch of 5-star rated funds, and they're heavy into technical support for advisors around their products and strategies. On top of that, they're just an awesome group of people, and they've got a dedicated team there to support you. And if you haven't already spoken to the guys at Centuria and heard about what they do yourself a favor and reach out.
Peita!
Hey!
Good to see you.
Exciting.
Yeah.
Good to see you too.
First time in the studio with us.
I know. How flash is this?
Well, I got to say, it's just transformed from, like, they've really managed the expectations well. We started like practically in a garage with these guys, and they've got this new destination, and they've been fitting it out. So we've sort of had a bit of a setup, and they said, hey, we rocked up, and there's Snickers on the table. They
so
got water over there.
Well, that's a bit like a VC though, right? You build the app in the garage, and then you get some more funding.
Yeah.
That's just the path of a great business.
It's a lean startup.
Exactly.
Yeah. So it's a pleasure to have you here, as always.
It's a pleasure to be here. I've had a Snickers. I've had some V. I'm happy.
We're going to get everything from her.
All the energy.
Where are we going to point
and then I'll crash. Yeah.
Oh, that's all right. Your husband can take care of that.
Exactly. That's his problem.
So, I don't know where to start. There's so much cool stuff happening with you at the moment, isn't there, Peter? Like, what do you feel like talking about? What's on your mind?
Yes, we've well, particularly personally, it's been a bit of a transition for me in the last 12 months. It's always accidental with me. I'd love to say that there was just like this grand plan. That's not how it works. I just respond to situations, and something we've done is approach speaking with a purpose. So I've and I'm sure, some of the listeners have maybe seen me present at a conference or something like that, or at one of the XY event, advisor events. But it was always, hey.
You really set the benchmark for MCs in that event.
Hey.
I think everyone who's been MCing lately, they watch that one to see how to do it.
And once again, do it with purpose. So I enjoy doing that. I love being on stage. And would you believe, I did tap dancing for 20 years. And so actually there was a history to this that I'd never connected to business. And it's just in the last 12 months we've realised that
you should tap dance on stage.
I should tap dance on stage. That's exactly what we've realised.
Seriously?
No. How boring.
I don't know.
Maybe for a moment it'd be
entertaining,
but not after that. But we realised that actually two things. One, presenting lights me up, and I actually really enjoy it. And I enjoy the one-to-many. I like influencing more than just the one-to-one. So
it ticks that ideological box.
Right, exactly, and impacting change. And the second thing is that there aren't many people doing it. And actually making it a business. So I've now actively gone out to get training in the business of being a speaker. And so it's with purpose that I'm following this. So building a website about it, having a speaker kit, so we're attacking it like a mission, like you would in your business. So, and that's been really interesting because when you are selling your skills like that on stage, you're selling your personality. Trying to describe that is really hard. Yeah. And I'm sure, the listeners out there, it's like when you do your LinkedIn profile, like it's the most awkward thing you've ever written in your life.
What's my job title?
They know numbers and like super. Like it's just, it's,
right, used to be an actuary.
Right. It's horrendous. Whereas when you go through this process, you've got to create words that can help people tap into what you're like. So it's almost like tapping in how you would describe me to somebody else.
Would you ideally just become a better communicator?
That's 100% what it is. And I think you become less self-conscious about who you are. So you sort of start to own who you are. So one of the characteristics we tapped into for me was that I'm cheeky. Like I'm just one of those I'm going to say something maybe a little blue, or I'm going to challenge people, or I'm going to make fun of myself. Like there was
Can
a
you please not
cheekiness.
do that in this podcast? We're a bit conservative.
I understand.
I don't know how to deal with
the
jokes.
most conservative group of people in the industry, definitely. So knowing yourself well and working out that things that you might have previously thought were a negative or something you'd hire, actually you doubled down on. So that's been a really interesting process and very challenging. Luckily, I've got a speaker coach and also a graphic designer and they've come to know me really well, and so they'll push back. Like, no, rewrite that. That's absolutely not you.
Yeah, they've seen what can be done or how you can be presented.
Exactly. And if you think about the best speakers you've seen, very rarely would you use words like corporate or, professional in the buttoned up sense, right? The best ones, and maybe
they got their own thing going on.
They do, right? I mean, maybe you've seen a Gary Vee or a Seth Godin or some of these guys. Like they're them, and they've sort of tapped into the essence of what that is, gone hard with it, and share that really well.
Have you found I'm presuming this is the case, but the deeper you've gone there, the easier and more effective your speaking's been?
100%. So it creates a real structure for how you then build a presentation.
You're not referencing external factors. You're going, how do I...
Exactly. Why do I want to do this? What impact do I want to have on the audience? And therefore you design it that way. So, and that's part of what I'm learning is this, speaking with purpose. So actually having, a mission to what you're presenting and how you do it. So it's been really interesting, and it's actually changed both the way that we're going to engage with the public and the way we're going to engage with other advisors. So I've been looking at what we all attend and the sort of training we can get, or, that sort of availability. And while we can get potentially inspiration, you go to a conference and there'll be some highfalutin, awesome, maybe it'll be a sports person or something like an inspirational one. And then you might get to go to something where they're flagging a new idea, or, you and I have both spoken at events where we'll flag something we're doing. But the gap we've identified is the literal how-tos. So it's, okay, there's that awesome thing. I'm inspired. I know I should do something.
How do you break it down?
What the hell do I do now? What do I do first? What do I do second? What are the challenges? What are the resources? Where do I... So we've decided we're just going to try and fill that gap. So I sort of want to curate stuff. So I travel the world going to FinCon and all these other events. How do I curate some of that so that then advisors can come? Maybe it's to a workshop, I don't know, and we'll get it done in that day.
Yeah.
They'll walk away with a completed thing, whatever that is.
I suppose you're being conscious of the whole learning journey and sort of, this bit's been taken care of. So you got to do this bit first. You got to get the excitement going. Then you got to sort of break it down a bit and get a bit more sort of under the bonnet.
Yeah.
And then you got to go, how do you
take some action? Yeah.
And obviously there's a few different formats that can be done.
Correct. And all of them are relevant. I think that's what somebody said to me. Oh, do you mean that, industry conferences are bullshit? No, not at all. I think they just all play a different role. So, for us, for me, I want to shake you up a little, inspire you to think a bit differently, but then I'm going to hold your hand and we'll get it done.
Yeah.
We'll be right there. Whereas I know when I go to some of these events, I come away with 47 pages of ideas and nothing really happens after that. It's like, they were awesome. Back to the day. What am I doing today?
The rest of the world just comes back and hits you in the face.
Exactly. So what we want to try and do is make sure people can come away with some momentum and result. And sometimes, often you'll look at those things. It's a bit like getting a personal trainer. We all know we should move more. We should eat better. It's not like I need a personal trainer to tell me that, right? So what they're there for is to give you some structure, step you through it, and then hold your hand as you go. And so that's sort of what we're looking to provide.
The concept you're dealing
with. Is just to help people take action.
What about for some of the people that, I don't know, I feel that there's a lot of good people out there that could be sharing good stuff.
Yep.
And they're held back from getting out there and maybe knocking back opportunities to get out there, and because they may not be as like the sound of their own voice as much as some others.
Yes.
Speaking
nobody in particular. The two people in this room. Okay.
But what message do you have for them, and what do you suggest?
That's a big gap. So in fact, in these four walls, I've been talking to my speaking coach on this, Andrew Griffiths, and we're thinking about doing an art of storytelling and potentially presentation workshop, so that people who have an awesome thing they want to share with the industry, an idea, structure, an offer, whatever it is, but like you say, it's just not natural to them to do this, can learn how to structure, maybe even a training program, how to structure a presentation, how to do all of that, and then make the decision about whether they want to present it or they get somebody else to present it. Because there's lots of ways to do that. So if somebody is either shy or just isn't a natural storyteller that way, all you need is to sit them next to somebody who is, and you can run a decent event.
They learn about it, and then
but
also,
they do
a tag team.
Right, because say I'm the person that sits next to them, then my job is just to draw that knowledge out of them. Right, so
it's a bit like a podcast.
Exactly. So, and you can run events that way, and you can or training that way. So, and the best ones do when you've seen. We've all been to probably underwriter things, when they're underwriter. The best ones are when there's a person with the underwriter or the actuary who draws out that knowledge, because they're the ones that are a good communicator. The other person has all this knowledge and insight. The combo is awesome.
We just had an awesome dude on today, so we don't know when the order of these podcasts is coming out, but Daniel Murray, and this guy he's actually very similar to you. Got this full mathematics background and has completely focused these days on the psychology of the human element. And he's got this business where he goes into businesses and helps them sort of tap into the way people relate to themselves, each other.
Right, yeah, so fantastic.
And one of the key things was being able to see the other side of everything.
Yeah.
And also the example that we were going through is like dropping in different types of people to get different results, obviously.
Correct.
And that's what you're talking about here.
Yeah.
It's
the outcome can be delivered so many different ways. And so you might be something of an introvert, but have developed a fabulous, insurance offer that's knocking the socks out of millennials, and they're all, but like so something fabulous, and you want to share and are willing to share. Then it doesn't mean you have to do that. You don't even have to be the one that presents. You could just partner with somebody else that does.
I love this concept.
Right. So it's just if you've got the mission, just find another way to get it done. Because you're right. I love getting on stage. I've even presented somebody else's presentation historically. I was given 10 minutes notice. The person didn't turn up. We had the slides. I read through it. I got the brief and I went up and presented. Did that scare me? No. I love that. Fun. Yeah. Now, I did admit to the audience that this is somewhat new to me. They didn't know it was 10 minutes new, but somewhat new to me. So please give it a take.
It's almost easier when the expectation isn't there.
Yeah, but I think also if you're relaxed, the audience relaxes. So I was relaxed about it. I said, lots of questions. I made sure I had some experts there. So the people that were sort of to the side of the presenter that were the technical experts
Good
I
question.
had next to me.
Bob,
exactly.
What do you think about that?
Exactly. And I think, if you can get, so that's my sweet spot. I love doing that. So I've just done some sessions at the end of last year, and we had a presentation I did for 45 minutes, but then we had 45 minutes of brainstorming, and instead of me putting the audience on the spot, they put me on the spot. So I've got this idea for a coaching offer. What do you reckon? And I would grill them backwards and forwards until we narrowed it down.
Okay.
So I was on the spot then, and so, but I love that.
Yeah.
So you've just got to find somebody who fills the gaps. Like you say, it's the multiple either styles or talents, and just bring them together. Don't be everything yourself. If you really want to do it, you can get it done.
So next time I talk to someone that's really cool, I won't try to force them to just come out as themselves sort of thing.
No.
I'll come up with an idea of who we could pair them with.
Correct.
To make them a super team.
Correct. And you can see that happens a lot actually in VCs. So there'll be the geek, the person that's sort of doing all of the nerdy stuff, and then they'll have that salesperson, right? And when you get that combo, it works beautifully. So you get the person who can tell the story and get everybody excited, and then you've got the nerd that go, yeah, I can do that, no problem, I'm doing it now while you're presenting,
Yeah, be like, we can do this, can't we? Yeah, yep.
Done it already, fixed. So yeah, I think, and there's a lot, in terms of a gap in the industry, I do think there's a gap in developed presentation skills. I think we'll learn them, right? So we sit in front of a client and we learn engagement one-on-one, but I don't think we really get much in communication, storytelling, listening well, actively, that sort of stuff, but also putting that and applying it to all parts of your business.
Well, I think the narrative one's quite pertinent, you might say.
Yeah.
Because I'm still far from getting that aspect because it's a much more structured aspect.
Yeah.
It's very easy for certain people to, if they've got the ability to just sort of communicate or engage and get a certain level of engagement, because you're at that level, it's okay, well, that's enough to actually do this.
Yeah.
But it's taking things to the next level and going, well, if you put this structure around it, you're going to get this outcome that's maybe a bit more effective.
Yeah, and what I'd say about structure, it's interesting. In dancing and certainly in sport, you give people structure so that they know it well enough that they can freestyle. All right. So if you look at, I'm a rugby league fan, if you look at a team like the Melbourne Storm, they're a very structured team. But the reason they practice particular plays so much is so that in a moment, a player can react and the play can, but it's freestyling. It's not like they go in the 57th minute, Billy's going to have the ball on the left-hand side of the field. It doesn't work that way. Yeah. They get enough repetition and structure that then they can freestyle. And I think we don't do that in business enough, where we acknowledge it's got to be structured initially, gives us comfort, we learn, and then that lets us sort of freestyle and react. And you're right, the storytelling needs that.
Yeah.
The narrative
What's
stuff
the most
needs
effective
that.
way of communicating?
It really is.
The way I've been talking about things so much these days, I'll constantly talk about anything that's going on. And it's like, okay, well, if it's about communication, whether it's marketing, whether it's between people, I don't think the narrative is right. And it's not like you're making up a story. It's just like, there's not enough depth to people's perception of what you want to communicate there.
Yeah. And there's an interesting difference that I didn't realise until it was pointed out to me. But when somebody's telling you or selling, only one letter difference and there's a reason, they're the same thing, right? Telling and selling are the same thing. Our natural reaction to that is defensive. So we're like, dude, not comfortable. You're trying to sell me. I'm going to doubt everything you say. If instead you tell a story, what happens is you literally take the audience on the bus with you. So they're instantly empathetic because you're just telling a story. Now, the fact that the outcome of that is a particular message or narrative, they will get subliminally anyway, but it's because you didn't tell them, you took them on a journey. And it's like a switch in the brain. It's instantaneous, and it's what advertising does so badly. And why it's failing badly. I mean, I don't know anybody that's watched an ad recently and gone, awesome, I'm going to buy that product. Doesn't work that way anymore.
Well, I guess one of the places you can learn, as icky sometimes as they can be, is like Facebook ads. Yeah. And the way, well, not Facebook ads, I guess
the communicators on Facebook.
Yeah. So and a lot of it's the same sort of stuff. Because Facebook is so targeted on you're that demographic, so you're going to get these people.
Yeah.
But the narrative that, some of them are really good. And the ones that you see and they're still there a year later, they're good because they've got their narrative around why they're there, what they're doing, what their background is. They're sharing something of themselves.
And interestingly, what often they're doing is, it's called an ad in Facebook, but they don't make it an ad. They share whether it's a blog post, a video, or whatever it is, that tells a story. And that naturally helps you assess whether I'm one of those people too. Ooh, I'm like them. And then it leads to sales. They don't, whereas the people that screw this up just go straight for the sell. It may as well be in neon and flashing. It doesn't work. Whereas the clever people sell the story. And so that's what the ad's for. It's just getting connection that way. In FinCon, a lot of the bloggers do that. So they actually use Facebook just to promote their blog posts. They don't promote their online program. They don't promote the other stuff. They promote their posts because that's how you get the community. That's how they connect with the stories. And then you let the next piece of information they read tell them about whatever they could buy.
Yeah, it's interesting.
And it's a different approach.
Well, I want to touch on, I guess, the development of this content because I think it's a really interesting point to discuss around how easy it is to get it out there, but where people say, "Oh, spend more time on it," but what are you spending time on? So often the bit that people think the time spent on is around actually the how do you execute on it, or how do you the idea is the easy bit, but how do you execute? Whereas my interpretation of what you're saying is okay, really think about the narrative, and then when you do it, just do it.
Yeah, because I think anybody would say, and we're talking about, so FinCon bloggers, some of them are earning $500,000 a year from blogging, right? So it's not hashtag fail, not at all. This is a business for them. And what's interesting for them is when you get the right message or blog or whatever it is, the content, then if it only reaches 10 but every one of them act, that is better than it reaching 10,000 and only 5 acting.
Yeah.
And I think we all chase the big numbers.
That,
it's not what we need, right? You
but
need
what about everyone else?
Right. It's like you've got to stop caring. If you can work out who you're talking to and you get every one of them, you will be busy for the rest of your life. So I think it's narrowing down who you're talking to and what about. And there's been lots of mistakes made that way. So the focus on SEO and all that sort of stuff, that is incremental. If your content isn't good for the audience you're trying to target, no amount of SEO is going to help.
Yeah, exactly.
Click once, never click again. That's what will happen.
Yeah,
so
well,
you'll get the clicks. But
the first bit of SEO was sort of, I guess, employing old school, just get out there and there'll be a percentage of people that want to deal with you.
Yeah.
And just sort of doing it in a different way.
Yeah.
Whereas now, like, it's definitely evolved to, like Facebook targeting is a form of SEO as well. It's like,
and I think we can get clever with this stuff. So, and I'm going to forget the name. What's the online design thingy that we've all used? That
Canva?
That does the competitions, and the name's just completely
competitions?
That does the design competitions online. It's
99 Designs.
Thank you. They've like my brain just melted instantly. Right. So I've seen him present at a blogging conference, one of the guys that works for them. And interestingly, what they did to get more community, more traction and more take up wasn't blah advertising or, all that sort of stuff. What they did was when somebody signed up, if you've ever used the app or the tool, when you load up something, a brief, and then people compete to win your business, designers. And then you might pick, I like these 5 designs. Then what they do is they give you a way to share that with your community and get people to vote in your community. So I can share it on Facebook and go, look, guys, I'm getting a new logo design for a T-shirt for something, for FinCon. We're heading to Aussies at FinCon. Here's the T-shirt. Rate them for me. And you send it out to your community. Now, what that does is I have, I don't know how many, 1,500 or something people on Facebook. So suddenly I have advertised 99 designs subliminally to my entire network, a good portion who have gone in and voted and then go, wow, that was cool. What's that about? So they actually, as part of their process of engaging with paying customers, they encourage a viral nature.
Yeah.
And that was intentional on their part. That wasn't accidental. So the purpose, while it gives a great result because you get good feedback, people will go,
you're adding value to the customer
experience. Right, so they get, so they're like, I can't read this or this doesn't work. Like you get good feedback, but actually the purpose of it was to get the word out. And so we've been thinking about that with what we're doing on the dream side. So this is for the public, taking them on a dream crusade, is that one of the journey could be getting them to sign up their dream team of their mates that are going to help them achieve the goal they have. And that can be anyone between 2 and 10 people, and suddenly one person turns into 10.
So setting up the accountability framework.
Right, but that also builds your community in multiples. So we've got exponential growth.
Is this in your business or is this in the broader dream?
This is in our sort of aptitude side, so the financial literacy and the dream stuff. So it's with intent. It's doing that stuff with intent, So cool. That was a clever, I thought, that's a bit ninja, and so I think we can take advantage of both a customer journey, which is awesome, but also tapping into things that mean we're not just advertising to the public, like just yelling. We're getting people who like us to find other people who like us.
It's almost like affiliate marketing.
It is. That's exactly what it is. It's viral. It's zombies.
But it's just I don't know. It's almost like the marketing that how to engage. Like I know I was talking to Jess Brady in terms of how they did they researched and did focus groups around how they were positioning their advice and what their messaging was and what they were covering.
Yeah.
And what people's perceptions were.
Yeah.
And that research process is marketing in itself.
Correct.
And it's just such a win-win because they're getting the great way to actually then serve these people. And these people are getting, they're learning about
the business, correct.
Yeah, the business and building trust in them.
Asking for feedback is one of the best ways to build a community. It's awesome. And because they feel invested, they're like part of the beta group.
I help them.
Oh, it's so great. And they listen to me. I feel engaged. They're instantly 20 steps closer to you than they were before. It's so powerful. And I don't think really as an industry we do it enough.
No.
So if somebody's thinking of a new offer, the first thing you should do is go out there and survey as many of them as you can and get them to share it with their mates and get that feedback, and they'll want to know more. Why are you doing this survey? What's it for? What do you do? Like, it's just natural. It's human nature.
I think, what everyone's battling against there is we're meant to know, aren't we?
Right. But we do, well,
and that's...
No, because life isn't like that.
Well, that's true.
Right. So who are we to say? So what have we got? Well, we've got qualifications and experience in financial advice. Now, that means we can probably crunch a few numbers. We understand financial markets, and we can do crap loads of paperwork. Right? Like, if you look at all of that, none of that gives us an expertise in marketing, research, understanding the human psyche necessarily. So I think we just need to acknowledge that and say to the public, we want to know you better so we can do better.
Yep.
And they love it when we do that. Any industry that does that, the public are like, thank goodness, because you guys have been talking gibberish for years. So it's relief.
Well, I haven't heard any business that has done a survey process say that it was a bad idea.
No. No, and I think lots do it of their current clients. I don't know that many just go out to the public generally. And the thing is, with social media now, if you think about however many people you say are connected to on Facebook, and then however many they're connected to, the pool of people you've got ability to tap into, sort of, 1 degrees of separation away, is in the thousands. So it's if you honestly just ask for help, people will go nuts. And you will get some real feedback. I think the challenge when you only survey your current clients is it's a microcosm of the world out there.
You might double down on that, but you're missing out on
correct.
Out
so
there.
It's both. And it's like anything. It's not either or. It's both.
What do you reckon about doing like a little crash podcast course now in dreams? And so if we sat down here now and we said, okay, let's if an advisor's listening, they want to add a certain level of engagement
human level to the way they're engaging.
Take it, do something different, have a go at something new. What can we do?
So so if we focus on dreaming, then the thing I think that's a switch for an advisor is, I believe we need to acknowledge that people don't have one goal in life. Right? We have loads, and they change all the time. And the more we interact with the world, the more they change. Right? The more you travel, the more you want to travel. Right? It's like that. So the more you're absorbing. So in fact, if you want to help open up your clients' minds to possibilities, then it's actually about encouraging them to have a habit of dreaming. So this is not a one-off. You come to your first meeting, let's talk about your goals or dreams. We write them down and we achieve them. It's potentially having a way to engage even before that, where they just start collecting lots of different things. And the word I use a lot to get people thinking is, what are you curious about? What's that thing where you go, I really wish I knew how that worked, or I really want to understand that. I mean, you were talking earlier about Komodo dragons and right? So somebody's probably curious about, have either read a book or watched one of the many David Attenborough awesome series. I'd love to go and see them in the wild, So, but people forget that stuff. So what we encourage them to do is have a habit of dreaming. What are they curious about? What do they wonder about? And then start knocking them off systematically. So it's building a habit. Exactly. Writing it down. And, I've got my book in my bag at all times, and I constantly add to it. And then systematically
you're running out of pages there when you pick.
It's a moleskin, so there's lots of pages. Okay. But I have to put multiple on a page, definitely, because there's just too many things. But when you start thinking that way, then your understanding of what's possible broadens. I think lots of us would have seen clients, particularly clients approaching retirement, where what they imagine they can do is really narrow, and dreaming can trigger that imagination. And it can really, and we do have this thing in us that's like imagination capital. It's like an asset, and if you're not tapping into that and developing and working it, it can disappear. And that's when we get really narrow. We become sort of like human hamsters. So
depending on where, I guess, what people's level of practice they are of thinking that way, then you got different. I suppose you got to go baby steps with people that have sort of closed off to thinking.
Correct.
Like that.
And so sometimes, there's some people where they're in that hamster mode, they're just surviving, right? Shut down, life's tough, or, they're really struggling. Then even if you're doing a fact find process, you're doing that first meeting, you can go through that information, and then I'll try and throw them off a bit. Well, in retirement, but what if you had like $50,000 extra a year to do something? What would you do? Right. And so when you take off the limits of the dollars, you start to hear the real things they wish they could do. Not the things they think society thinks they should do, or their kids think they should do, or, like this structure, that starts to open up, and you hear some crackers, and in a couple, one of them will say something the other one never knew they wanted to. I had an older couple, and all he'd ever wanted to do, as it turns out, was get a really old Harley and do it up and then drive around Australia. They'd been married 40 plus years, and he had never shared that. Now, interestingly, that's not a ridiculous dream in dollar-wise. Like, that's not unachievable for many people. But he just never thought, A, it was really possible. Where would I start? I don't know anything about doing such a thing. How would I learn? And there's no way my wife would want to do that. Or like, he had just completely discounted his own dream before he'd even let it become a word on a page. And that's why the habit of just writing them down and sort of accepting them almost, like, yeah, that's cool. That's a cool dream. We're just putting it in the dream list.
Subtle way of
it frees you up. Yeah, so that your brain doesn't go, dude, that's never going to happen. And then you just let it go. And so that was a couple of years ago.
It's a semi-commitment. Like it's an
acknowledgement.
Yeah.
And it's that imagination capital thing is really interesting. So we've started talking to corporates who are using dreaming and are talking about building this habit to then help tap into innovation in a business. Because if you can't imagine your own future and all the richness of that tapestry, how are you going to imagine a different business? How are you going to imagine a different way to do things, right? So it's sort of tapping into a part of our brain, that dream muscle, that means we can look broader than where we are now. We can imagine differently.
That's a much broader application of...
It is, and it once again happened accidentally. So it was because I got approached for a speaking gig, and they said, oh, but, this is the topic, and we just started a conversation, and she said, oh, I think we're going to have this, or else nobody will innovate. I'm done.
Well, it's really relevant.
Yeah, it is.
Because I think, like, if you look at the current state of business and evolution of business and like technology and everything, the only way to advance is to think differently.
Yeah.
Because like if something has already been done a certain way, if it's done like that, it gets commoditized. Done. Well, there's more competitors. Okay, yep, we can see that. Yep, we'll do that. We'll do it quicker. We'll do it more efficiently. We'll come in with new technology.
Yeah.
Sweet. The only way you're going to do something that's going to take you ahead in the market or like from a business standpoint is by doing something differently.
Yeah, correct. And
that hasn't been done.
And if you haven't tapped into your imagination for a long time, and the easiest imagination is thinking about fun things to do, right? Not all of us can paint. I wish I could. Not all of us can sing, like all those creative things. But all of us can take a moment to go, oh, I wish I was in Fiji, or I wish I was, that sort of stuff. If we're not doing any of that, I firmly believe we can't tap into any imagination in any business sense, whether you're the owner, whether you work how could you possibly, if you're not doing it for yourself, there's no way you're going to do it in the office.
So you're talking about people's pastimes and
all of that, right? So, and the more you're doing, the richer your home or the richer your out of work life, I believe the richer your work life will get. So as they're experiencing more.
Star Wars.
All of that. So going to the Star Wars, so there's now a cruise that's a Star Wars themed cruise, and there's an entire resort.
In the book, isn't it?
Right, there's an entire resort in the States.
Have you already been there?
No.
It's in the book.
It's in the book. So the resort that's themed Star Wars, right? And people go, well, how's that going to impact your business? When I go and attend that, I will interact with different people. I will experience different things. I will see storytelling in its richest form. I mean, the Star Wars ethos is an entire world that's been created where some people speak in languages from that thing, right? So to witness that can only positively impact what I might do in a business. So the more we do, the more people we interact with, the more part of the world we see, I think the broader your understanding of what you can do in a business sense. And so I really see them inextricably linked now. Where I hadn't before. I hadn't made that connection, but it's almost like there's a step before innovation. It's like if you're not getting the imagination happening, if you're not dreaming, innovation just isn't going to happen.
You've got to get out of your environment.
100%. It's why going overseas to these conferences and doing these things outside of the norm are really important.
Well, travel's always, like I'm always a bit simplistic about it. Just go traveling. Just travel. What? You want to buy a house? Why do you want to buy a house? Travel's so much fun. But then I won't be able to buy a house.
Well, and look, it's funny. That's actually part of the dreaming thing we're doing is that reaction you just had, or the inner sort of monologue thing, is what most young people in Australia are going through.
Yeah, totally.
Right? And the issue is what you're fighting against is a societal expectation that you should. Mm-hmm. The problem is that what ultimately people are worried about for you is, are you going to have enough money in the future to continue living? Like ultimately that's what we're talking about, right? A home takes away one of the expenses. Once you've paid it off, I know I've got a place to live, right?
Yep.
It's not the only way to do it.
Just make more money.
And in fact, well, more than that, you could rent for life.
You could get a small house.
In fact, people in some of the best cities in the world do that. You could get a small house, exactly. You could live in an apartment. Like there's so many options.
You can become a backpacker.
You can house share. There are actually people, there's entrepreneurs, there's this club you can join, I wish I could remember the name of it, where they just trade houses the whole time. Right? And
do you have to have one to start with, but?
No, so what they're doing, it's like a house sitting sort of thing, but for entrepreneurs, right? So for other people. And so they've brought together a whole lot of people that want their houses sort of broadly occupied most of the time. And then these entrepreneurs travel around and then they have events what I just described requires imagination and creativity to even think it's possible. So somebody at some
build
point
up that trust network.
All of that, right? Somebody went, wow, wouldn't it be cool if? So that's a whole lot of what we're talking about here too. And that's where travel, where you just let yourself experience the different, is awesome, you know? And you second guess stuff. Like, oh, that's not how we do it back home. Aren't we idiots? Like that happens to me all the time. Can't believe we make it that hard back home.
Yeah.
You know, and we do that a lot. So yeah, I think this dreaming stuff is, I want to empower particularly young people to realise they don't have to do this white picket fence 2.5 kids Aussie dream thing that is an awesome dream. So I'm not dissing the dream, but I think the people it applies to is narrower than it used to be.
Do you feel the need to replace that with some other sort of fixed destination, or is that how do you? Yeah, no, people need something to hang their hat on, don't they?
So you've
like they still need that security piece.
No, so
and because we're talking such a lateral.
So what happens is when you just go with society's expectation, there's a plan for you because you've seen it before.
Yep.
So my folks did that, my older brother did that, so I just follow that. So what happens is there's a path and a plan. If you don't do that, all you need is to be taught strategic and critical thinking to create your own one. So that's part of what we do in the Dream Crusade. We don't just teach you to build the habit. We go, right, this is what you want to do. Now we're going to teach you how to make that a plan.
So you create
I'm not talking financial plan. I'm talking
like
a
fisherman.
bigger, yeah, exactly. So build that lifestyle. How do you go about doing that? And teach them that thinking. Because you're right. If it's not been done before, or not by lots of people, you know, and not by the media and all that sort of stuff.
So the idea is to actually transfer the stability that's attached to the social conformity into, I guess, your own possibility.
Correct. It's self-confidence. So it's just, I have chosen, it's living with purpose, right? It's having that, so it's actually tapping into that. I think for lots of us, you sort of go with the flow, right? You're like, no, this is what's expected. I'll go to uni. No, and then I've got to get a job. No, I'll do that, you know.
Does this work with, because obviously you've got different types of personality. Does this work with people that are more cautious? How have you seen that play out?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's just the way, to be frank, they're probably better at it. So your risk takers, and I'm generalising, have a little bit of an attention problem. So, this dream, that dream, you know, attention deficit is shiny, right? Yeah. So, and so they flick. Whereas often what goes with conservative is sort of a methodical approach. So actually, once they get the confidence to go, you know what, I really want to do this thing.
So you give them the structure, they can actually
they just follow it.
They're not going to come off the path because that's what they've decided their
mission, right? And focus. Whereas the others that are risk takers leap, right? And often it's like, dude, stop leaping. We've got some stuff to do first. Yeah. So actually, I would argue that the tougher ones are the ones that have a lot of that.
They're easy to jump into the new channel, but then execute on it well.
Exactly. And we've all seen both ends of that spectrum, just in personalities. So yeah, I don't worry as much for the conservatives. I think you do have to. So cracking that dream muscle for them, like really cracking that, is harder.
I was going to ask.
But the implementation isn't as hard. Whereas for your more, people who are happy to take a whole lot of risk are like come up with 400 dreams in seconds, but it's harder to teach them the structure.
It's a bit like when we've talked about speaking. I remember talking. Was it Lynn Chanella when she was presenting and talking about the extrovert versus the introvert in terms of speaking? Like the extrovert's happy to jump in. Yeah, I'll do that. But they
don't practice as much. They don't structure
get the framework,
as much.
all that sort of thing. That's
exactly
really hard
the
for them.
same.
Whereas an introvert who, like, it's harder for them to make that commitment. But once they have, they're gonna nail it.
Get it done. Yeah, exactly right. It's just exactly the same thing. Yeah, it's really interesting.
What about time frames for this cracking of the dream muscle?
Yep.
How for people listening, what sort of if you decide as an advisor you want to sort of think this way and try to and apply this sort of application to your clients and to new clients, existing clients, what should they have in their mind from a time expectation? How long it's going to?
Yeah, so I mean, it's an interesting concept, and I think it's different for each client base or ideal client base. So let's imagine you've got a little bit of a top end or somebody that clients generally that will be paying a bit more. Then something that could be interesting is you could have a target pool of people, the same sort of people you might have taken to, like, had an event for that might be prospects, right? So they're hot prospects, but not your clients. One of the things you could do as an alternative is to have something like, a dream presentation. And in fact, I'm going to be doing that for other advisors where they'll have an event and I'll just come and do the prezzo. But then as part of that, there'll be a gift of like a Moleskine diary thing or a notebook to those attendees.
Yep.
And then the interaction with that person as a marketing effort will just be about getting the entries into that book.
Yep.
So instead of selling them on insurance or, anything like that, it's like, you know what, to make the advice we're going to do really impact you as a person, I need you to build this muscle.
So is it almost, I'm trying to correlate in terms of, like, you got a review meeting. Is that you're saying don't do it there?
No, well, so we're picking ideal versus reality, right?
Yeah,
so ideal
okay. So you're saying the ideal is that
build it up, use it as a marketing effort. First of all, make sure you've got your own, because the best way to help other people build theirs is to share yours. All right, weird and wonderful. The weirder the dream you've come up with, the more you need to share it, because it actually empowers that person to realise that their weird dreams are okay too. So to help them build that over a time, and that means you could have a tail or a build-up for prospects of a good 12 months. You could actually have a bit of a journey that was like a loose marketing journey they went on around dreams that helped them build that up. Then,
without charging?
That could be your marketing tool. Then at the first meeting they could bring that book, and one of the things you do is help them pick the top 3 they want to knock off shortly. So instead of you doing, what are your goals? And that blank look, that blank, they all get it, right? Have more money? I just love it. Like, what are you talking about? So what you'll have done is get them to build almost like a big, brainstorm of possibilities, and then in the first meeting you're helping them clarify which ones are important to them and pick some. Your first lot of advice can address those specifically as part of the advice, and at a review meeting what I'd encourage you to do is look back to the ones they'd picked, share their photos, how did it go, tell us all about that, and then pick the next ones. So it's not a goals session that happens once forever. It's a perpetual, what's the next thing you're going to knock off? So to me, it makes a review meeting far more interesting for all concerned, because fun, sharing, achievement, places we've been, things I've learned, I went and learnt salsa dancing or whatever it was. And then, right, well, what's next? What have you added? What are we going to do for next year?
You've laid up what you need for advice, which is... You've then got your targets.
Correct. It really gives that the goals and objectives thing connected to advice more richness, because they're not those broad goals that really if you look at most SOA templates that, 20, there's not many that are sort of listed. It's making them really personal. And, the regulator and your compliance team that you have to do your pre-vet and all that sort of thing for love detail. They love depth in terms of you understanding a client. It's the know your client stuff. So if you can say, well, they want to go to the Star Wars resort and then they want to they want to learn salsa dancing and go to Roar and Snore at Taronga Zoo. So I've just named 3 of mine. If you can list that in a piece of advice and then show through the advice that you're helping them achieve that, and then in a review comment on that. I mean, that's fantastic. That's a depth that nobody can discount. They can't. And from a connection with the client, you talking about with them what you've achieved and what they've achieved, and show me the photos, and what's more, the sort of content you get for social media and other things is fabulous too, because to get their sign off. So if you've done a review meeting, guys, I love those photos at the new Star Wars
we share them?
thing. Do you mind if we pulled a few together and share and tag you? Oh, that'd be awesome. So your community or your clients are then providing you with the content.
So you've still got. So you're saying there's still the machinery of advice as we know it going on underneath.
100%.
It's just you're just creating a better journey to get to that.
You really are, and I think I actually think our job is to help them extract what they want. I don't think most people know what they want. It's just the truth, and the ones that really know it in detail probably need us less, right? I really want this in that year and I want to have this much income. It's like, right. They probably are the type that are going to then work out how to get there themselves. Whereas especially
with more and more tools available.
Right, online, robo, all that sort of stuff. So but there's the ones that are just sort of wandering around aimlessly, which is most of us, to be frank, then they need help getting that clarity. They need help with their purpose. Just like us as business owners often need consultants to help us with our purpose as a business. Right? That's because it's hard.
Yeah.
So I think we need to acknowledge that for the public and help them get there.
Yeah, it's exciting. So what else is happening?
What else is happening? Well, we're spending a lot of time on that. So one of the things we're trying to do is get on the speaker circuit outside the industry, which...
International or
even local, but both. And that's a bit different. So you don't see many advisors out there on the speaker circuit. There's the usual people we've probably all seen at conferences. And so what we're aiming to do is get me on the panel for, employer conferences and things like that. So that's a different marketing exercise again, and so that's been interesting. So, do I market myself as a financial advisor, or is it me as an author, or is it me as a... So it's, tapping into what you add value. Exactly. So yeah, that... And that's been interesting. And what's fascinating, though, like we were talking about before, where you partner with people that have what you don't have and it works in conjunction, is we're actually starting to have conversations with advisors that say engage with employers. And what they want to do is partner with me for the event where I go and present, but the leads that come out of that go to the advisor. So because it's something I love to do, I've got a concise offer, we've got the dream concept, all that sort of stuff, and then the advisor takes it on because they recognise they're not the one that wants to get the training to be a high-quality speaker and then get up and present in front of 600 staff at the, Optus annual conference or whatever it is. So yeah, it's been interesting. So that's the biggest challenge for me at the moment, because inside the industry, of course, not many of us have to reach out much to get to most people, whereas getting in front of the person that organises the Flight Centre annual conference or the whatever, that's a tougher gig. That's tougher to do.
There's a lot of opportunity, arguably.
Yeah, potentially. And what I'd love to do, so my hope is, I'm sort of keeping a diary of the process. My hope is that if I break this ground, we could then have more advisors doing similar for their own, whatever their own way of connecting is, whatever their own story is or presentation is. I can prove it can be done. We can sort of build a network of, and then build a network of people from the industry that are going broader in terms of who we're reaching.
That's exciting. Who would have thought Peita wouldn't rest with just the advice industry?
Yeah. Well, you know what? It's been interesting. The dream thing was a bit accidental, but we've worked out it just applies to everything. So if we can inspire and help act the public,
that corporate element.
We can do we've built out a team building exercise for institutions using the dream concept. So if you and I share 20 something of our dreams we've written down, the understanding we have about each other, the way we work, what inspires us, is quite different. Whereas a lot of team building exercises really don't build teams.
It's a lot of depth.
There's no sharing. Right.
It's not there.
It's personal.
Like you might you might get like, okay, this is how, understanding how they are, but you may not be connecting. You're like, okay, well,
thanks for doing that thing I asked you to do. Awesome.
Adrian may need to be told, reminded about certain things because he gets distracted easily. Okay, cool. I'll try to remember that.
Yeah. But if you can get a room, and particularly a whole lot of, like a diverse team, you'll have people that are quite different. Difference is scary until you understand more. And then when you understand more, it's a frame of reference to communicate.
What's the drive behind it?
Right, and what interests them. And so then, we've just mentioned some Star Wars stuff. People know that I get all sorts of people connecting with me that I've never met that have seen me, like now, talking about Star Wars. And that's the first thing they say to me. Now, why does that matter? Well, they might not have said anything before, but they remember that I love it. They come up to me and they talk to me about it. Or they've just seen the movie. Peter, I just had to tell you, so.
It's a unique attribute about you.
It is, and it's a frame of reference. There's a way that you can converse.
So it's applying essentially what's done in the advice process to an extent, because you're learning that stuff about your clients all the time.
Yeah.
Actually going, well, this stuff's the reason we do that. Obviously we need to understand more about them, but that process has always created a great connection with the client.
Yeah, definitely.
And in all these other areas of life and business, etc., that connection would be really valuable as well.
It will, because our empathy. So you were talking before about your previous podcast you recorded, where it was about putting yourself in somebody else's shoes. That empathy creates connection, and it's a glue. And we actually did this some time ago before we had the Dreams concept with the team. And so we were doing a bit of a brainstorming day. And at the start, I got the team to answer some questions we had. And one of them was list all of the continents you travel to or the places you travel to. And what was interesting is one of our team, Hillary, who's older and very experienced, she's one of those support people that's really experienced, been around forever. And she's an older generation. And so therefore the rest of the team's perception of who she is tainted by her age, right? And who she is now. She has seen more of the world than almost anybody I know, we all discovered. So backpacking through Africa to connecting parts of countries nobody would have travelled to then, let alone now. Like she's an adventurer. And so the sharing of this stuff creates an understanding and an interest with people that otherwise I think we can really put in boxes, right? We just sort of judge, not in a harsh way, but we discount who they are to a very narrow sense. Yeah.
It's about broadening it again.
It is, and the way in which you communicate, the empathy you show, the interest you show, all of that's good. All of that richness is how great teams work, great ideas happen, and change happens. Whereas if we just think narrow, think the same, you're a triangle and I'm a square and he's a circle. Like if we just have that sort of narrow perception of life, that's not how anything changes. So that understanding is really important.
Well, if people want to change and they've been inspired by something that's been said in our podcast today, where can they go? What can they do?
So they should reach out on LinkedIn or on Facebook, Peita D. And it's literally PEITAD on both of those. And I'm now being asked to present at dealer group conferences. We're even actually probably going to start having sessions that people can sort of turn up at a pub and come themselves. So they don't have to wait for a big event. So reach out and just ask. I'm interacting with advisors all the time.
Would it be also specifically around speaking as well if people are interested?
Correct, definitely.
If there's enough demand, you can facilitate.
Definitely. Yeah. So if there's a topic in particular. So lots of the things that we've come up with is just because I get asked, right? So it's not, once again, I'm not an expert. We just curate.
Well, I was actually I'm talking about other advisors that want to get into speaking because that was
definitely. So in fact, if there was enough advisors that said, you know what, Peter, I want to start developing my skills as a speaker, I know exactly who I could partner with to develop some sessions to get that done without a doubt. It's just the level of interest.
Yeah.
So if people want to tweet me or Facebook or LinkedIn stalking, whichever type of stalking appeals to you.
Get 10 friends and Peter will sort
that's
it out
the thing,
for you.
100%. So you get some people together and we'll get it done.
That's awesome.
Yay.
Thank you, Peter.
Not at all. Lovely to be here.
And
I think I'm due another Snickers.
Yeah, absolutely. You've earned it.
Thank you. Thank you.
Talk to you next time.
See ya.